देवकी नंदनाय च नन्दगोपकुमाराय गोविन्दाय नमो नमः। ॐ अज्ञानतिमिरन्धस्य ज्ञानञ्जनशलाकया चक्षुरुन्मिलितं देवकी नन्दन श्रीगुरवे नमः। नमः विष्णुपदाय कृष्णपृष्ठाय भूतले श्रीमते भक्तिवेदान्त स्वामिनिति नामिने। नमस्ते सरस्वते देवे गौरवाणी प्रचारिणे निर्विशेष शून्यवादी पाश्चात्य देशतारिणे। जय श्री कृष्ण चैतन्य प्रभु नित्यानंद श्री अद्वैत गदाधर श्रीवास आदि गौर भक्त वृंदा। हरे कृष्णा 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 हरे हरे, हरे राम राम हरे हरे कृष्णा। Yes, yes, it is chapter 15. All right. You put chapter 15 only, Mataji, not 14. Just check once.
It's okay, Prabhu. I can correct it later.
I will change it, Prabhuji. You just carry on.
Okay, thank you. You can make me co-host, Mangal.
Yes, no, I will make you host, Prabhuji. 1 minute.
Hare Krishna, Prabhuji's, Mataji's, welcome everyone to very special day. We have already started with Diwali. Not from the normal festivities that we know Diwali for, but the Vaishnava festivities, including the very important Tithi of Bahulashtami and all, they already happened 2 days back. So, Hare Krishna. So, thank you everyone for joining this morning in discussing Srimad Bhagavatam. So, we have been studying chapter 15 of Srimad Bhagavatam, the Pandavas retire timely. And anyone would like to recollect some of the points from the last discussion, Prabhuji's, Mataji's? Anyone who wants to answer can raise their hand. Any point we recollect from our last discussion? Hare Krishna. All right. So last time we saw how Maharaj Yudhishthir, after his many speculative inquiries, firstly to Bhimasen and secondly majorly to Arjuna upon his return from Dwarka, about the well-being of the Yadu family, about the well-being and well-being of Lord Krishna, and then finally the well-being of Arjuna himself, as well as proper discharge of his duties as a Kshatriya. After all these speculative inquiries from Yudhishthir Maharaj, Arjuna was still very quiet. And finally, his dejected face as well as the constant rolling of the tears from his cheeks finally broke down the news to Maharaj Yudhishthir that Lord Krishna, along with the entire Yadu family, had departed for the spiritual world. And specifically, Arjuna goes on to recollect various favors done by Lord Krishna upon Pandavas and specifically upon Arjuna himself as Lord Krishna's eternal friend and associate, because of which Arjuna could come out of many difficult situations. Not only difficult situations, he also attained many facilities and privileges which were normally not available to any earthly being, like being able to visit the heavenly planets from within the same earthly body that Arjuna possessed. Not only that, being honored in the assembly of the Devatas by Indra having Arjuna seated on an equal level as him, and even other exalted devatas like Lord Shiva, King Indra, Agni, and other devatas, they blessing Arjuna because of his exalted status in his devotional service and being pleased with him. And Indra himself arranging for so many comforts and facilities in giving Arjuna a very grand reception, as well as other heroic feats that Arjuna could achieve because of the favor bestowed upon him by Lord Krishna. So we won't go through all of those incidences that were quoted by Arjuna, as we are still in between them. So we will just open this slide where we were last time. And we discussed one of the incident quoted by Arjun was about Draupadi being insulted in the assembly house of the Kauravas, and how Krishna personally made sure that the wives of those Kauravas who were instrumental in insulting Draupadi, their hairs would be loosened. That means they would become widows and their husbands would become dead because of this gross misconduct and offense at the lotus feet of such a great devotee of the Lord as Draupadi, she being a chaste wife of all the Pandavas and a pure devotee of the Lord. And we discussed the famous prayer from Maharaj Rahugan to Maharaj Jadabharat, where he mentions that I do not fear the Vajra of King Indra, neither I fear the Danda of Yamaraj, nor I fear the trident of Lord Shiva, but I am very, very afraid of uh, offense at the lotus feet of a devotee. And we also discussed that such a offense at the lotus feet of a devotee, it can reduce one's longevity, that means one's duration of life, one's beauty, fame, religion, blessings, and even promotion to the higher planets that one would have secured as a result of one's pious credits. All these get lost. All these are lost when we commit offense at the lotus feet of a devotee. And specifically, we had also discussed the very graphic example of Mr. N, who was a greatly influential person in Bombay at that particular point in time during the time of Srila Prabhupada, and who had a very nefarious motive of cheating the devotees by taking Lakshmi, taking money from them for selling the Juhu land, and in return keeping the land, the plot of land as well with himself, and thus cheating devotees and bringing disrepute to devotees by spreading so many negative propaganda about devotees in the leading newspapers and all. And finally, how he thus reduced his own duration of life by trying to persecute devotees. And Srila Prabhupada personally uh, mentioned that Lord Narsimhadev personally killed Mr. N for thus targeting devotees in an unfair manner. So we discussed this, and we also discussed Arjuna receiving favors and blessings from different devatas, including receiving Pashupata Astra from Lord Shiva, receiving the chariot from Agni, from the fire god, receiving special weapons from Lord Indra, so on and so forth. So just because of he being a nice devotee, without even uh, making any separate endeavor to please the devatas or worshipping them separately. And we also discussed the example of Lord Shiva from the fourth canto of Srimad Bhagavatam, how the Prachetas, because of their cooperative spirit to practice devotional service towards Lord Krishna, Lord Shiva automatically became pleased and appeared before them and personally taught them the proper glorification of the Lord in the form of Rudragit, for which there is a dedicated chapter, chapter 24 in the 4th canto of Srimad Bhagavatam. And we also discussed the example of goddess Bhadrakali personally appearing before Jadabharat and all the dacoits without even Jadabharat calling for her, by being disturbed about the apparent killing of Jadabharat at the hands of dacoits, and personally taking it upon herself to uh, to punish the dacoits for this misconduct and severing their all heads and limbs. So we thus saw that Devatas will be more pleased with us if we acknowledge their position in relation to Lord Krishna as his devotee, and we also render our own devotional service very, very nicely. There are tens of hundreds of such examples, and not all examples are possible to be studied. We also know the example of Lord Shiva personally desiring the association of another great devotee, Srila Sanatan Goswami, who was residing near Govardhan Hill, and because of some discomfort from mosquitoes, when Sanatan Goswami desired to leave that place, Lord Shiva personally arranged for Sanatan Goswami to stay for one more day and made sure that not a single mosquito shows up in that cave where Sanatan Goswami was living, and thus making sure that Sanatan Goswami could stay there for a longer duration and give association to Lord Shiva as well. So now we proceed from text 12 onwards. Let me see if this is already covered. Yes, so this we saw how Arjuna fought valiantly with Lord Shiva, who came in a disguised form, and thus he pleased Lord Shiva by his uh, by his fighting abilities and his courage, and Lord Shiva granted Arjuna the Pashupata Astra. Yes, so, and in the purport, Srila Prabhupada also explains two specific qualifications that are required for a person to go to heavenly planets. Anybody would like to mention these qualifications, Prabhuji's, Mataji's, if you got a chance to read through? Even if you don't recollect two, at least one, anyone? It is clearly mentioned in the purport, these qualifications. What are the qualifications required for a person to reach higher planetary system? Srila Prabhupada specifically cites Moon, Chandra as one of the
Clarity.
heavenly planets. Hare Krishna, Murli Prabhu.
Hare Krishna, Prabhuji. Dandavat.
Yes, Dandavat.
Prabhuji, I can see on the screen, Prabhuji,
You can see.
performing sacrifices, giving charity, and undergoing severe austerity.
Yes. Yajna, Dana, and Tapa. Sacrifices, Yajna, charity, and austerity. Sacrifices, charity, and austerity. These should be performed in a sufficient manner, to a sufficient level, then one will be eligible. This is the first qualification. And second qualification Bhagavata mentions is all these planets, what to speak of heavenly planets. Prabhupada writes further on in the purport that beyond heavenly planets, there are higher planetary systems like Janaloka, Maharloka, Tapaloka, and finally concluding with Satyaloka. So all these planets, the beings who reside there, they are highly pious and in the mode of goodness. And Prabhupada mentions that most of the current population in this world is mostly in the mode of passion and ignorance. So until and unless we develop that mode of goodness, that second qualification to reach the planets even higher than the heavenly planets would never come. So as a result, Prabhupada mentions that whatever mechanical means we come up with to reach this higher planetary system, it won't be a sustainable mean to stay there. Secondly, even if by mechanical means we somehow reach that planet, the glory of that planet won't be visible. Like, we don't want to go into the modern recent happenings, but even when the Chandrayaan recently went to the moon planet, all what the scientists could find was darkness and the stones and the dust there. But it won't be feasible for the mankind to understand the glory and the opulence of these heavenly planets without reaching there with proper qualifications. So then we proceed to the next verse, text 13. This one we didn't cover, right? Prabhuji's, Mataji's. So this text 13 onwards will start from today. Just give me 1 minute. I'll close the window. Otherwise, it's very noisy. Hare Krishna. Any devotee would like to recite through the text? Gita Pradeep Mataji. You're comfortable with English or should I show Devanagari as well?
It's okay, Prabhuji.
It's okay. Okay.
Yeah, Dandavat pranams.
Understood.
Tatraiva me viharato bhujadandayugmam
Tatraiva me viharato bhujadandayugmam
Khandiva lakshanam arati vangyaya devaha
Gandiva lakshanam arati vadaya devaha
Sendraha sritayat anubhavavitam ajamida
Sendra Shrita Yat Anubhavita Ajamina
Tenaham adyamushita purushena bhumna
Tena
Adyam
Mushitam Purushena Bhumna. Translation.
Translation. When I stayed for some days as a guest in the heavenly planets, all the heavenly demigods, including King Indradeva, took shelter of my arms, which were marked with the Gandiva bow, to kill the demon named Nivata Kavacha, O king, descendant of Ajamida. At the present moment, I am bereft of the supreme personality of Godhead, by whose influence I was so powerful.
Yes. So here Arjuna is recollecting one more incident from his having visited the heavenly planets, that the devatas who are supposed to be much more powerful and endowed compared to the earthly beings, they even took help of Arjuna because of his might and because of his prowess with the Gandiva bow granted by Lord Krishna to him. And they personally took help of Arjuna to kill this demon, Nivata Kavacha. Purport is small, so you can read the complete purport, Mataji.
Yes, Prabhuji. The heavenly demigods are certainly more intelligent, powerful, and beautiful, and yet they had to take help from Arjuna because of his Gandiva bow, which was empowered by the grace of Lord Sri Krishna. The Lord is all-powerful, and by his grace, his pure devotee can be as powerful as he may desire, and there is no limit to it. And when the Lord withdraws his power from anyone, he is powerless by the will of the Lord. Thank you.
Thank you, Mataji. So, does anyone recollect Prabhuji's, Mataji's? What was the reason that we discussed last time about Krishna withdrawing the power? There were two specific reasons that were mentioned as part of the purport and what we discussed as well. Or any one reason if you recollect. What are the reasons given in Bhagavatam? Why does Lord empower? That is quite clear, and we just read it as well. Whenever he wants to empower his devotees to fulfill his mission, he grants them great powers. Usha Kamat Mataji, maybe you mention one, and Shama Gopika Mataji can mention another one. What is the
Yes.
reason? Yes,
Hare
Mataji.
Krishna Prabhuji, pranams. The reasons were that, first of all, Arjuna had fulfilled the mission of the Lord. He had fulfilled the mission of the Lord, and the Lord withdraws these powers at any time when the Lord feels that it is not required.
Correct.
So
Very nice, Mataji. So, till the time the Lord's mission is to be fulfilled, the powers are given. But when the Lord feels that they are no longer required, He withdraws them as well. This is one reason. Very nice. Shama Gopika Mataji, what is the other reason you recollect?
Hare Krishna Prabhuji. The other reason is uh, that actually he has already fulfilled the mission, and this one is not needed when for going back to Godhead. The
Yes.
power which he has is not needed for going back to Godhead. That's the other reason.
Yes, Mataji. Very nice. So, we discussed clearly that Bhagavatam mentioned that all these powers are not needed to go back home, back to Godhead. In fact, we had discussed also that all these skills, being able to memorize many, many verses, like in terms of one's intelligence or in terms of one's physical power, prowess, all these are not, or one's beauty or wealth, all these are not the qualifications, but only devotional service of the Lord is the qualification to go back home, back to Godhead. So, since these empowerments are not needed to go back home, back to Godhead, Krishna withdraws them when his mission is fulfilled. And as we will see very graphically in the case of Arjuna. Then, next verse, Shama Gopika Mataji, you want to recite this verse?
Yes, Prabhu.
So you can recite in proper meter, Mataji. Yeah.
Yeah. Yadbandava Gurupaladhimanantaparam
Yadbandava Kurupala Anantapara
Ekuratena tatarehamatiya sattvam
Eko
Eko
Radena
Mahatya
Tattvam
प्रत्याहृतं बहुधनं च मया परेषाम्
Pratyahritam
Pratyahritam
Bahudhanam Shamaya
Maya Paresham
तेजास्पदं मणिमयं च हृतं शिरोभ्यः
Tejaspadam
Mayam
Jahrityam
Shirobhya. Translation.
Translation: the military strength of the Kauravas was like an ocean in which there dwelled many invincible existences, and thus it was insurmountable. But because of his friendship, I, seated on the chariot, was able to cross over it, and only by his grace was I able to regain the cows and also collect by force many helmets of the kings, which were bedecked with jewels that were sources of all brilliance.
Yes,
Uh,
thank you,
yeah.
Mataji. So
Thank
purport is basically this pastime as well we had discussed in great length, that specifically the incidents about Arjuna reclaiming the cows that is mentioned by Arjuna in the translation, it is related to the Virat, King Virat, in whose kingdom the Pandavas had taken shelter during incognito, during their Agyatavas, and Kauravas, they attacked the kingdom of King Virata in order to steal all the 60,000 plus cattle, the cows that King Virata had. And when King Virat and his elder son, they were busy defending the kingdom on the southern side, suddenly the Kauravas attacked from the northern side. And only the younger son of King Virat, Uttara, who was the brother of Uttara, the wife of Abhimanyu, he was the only one in palace at that particular point in time. And while he boasted very famously in front of everyone that I will immediately respond to all these Kaurava warriors and will defeat them single-handedly, when he actually went in front of the great warriors like Bhishma, Drona, Krupa, Karna, so on and so forth, he actually basically he became very afraid, and in panic situation he decided to run away from the battle. And Arjuna, in the form of a eunuch Brahannala, who was driving Uttar's chariot, he stopped Uttar from running away from the battlefield, saying that it would bring great infamy to Maharaj Virata and yourself and to the kingdom and to let us fight. And then he brought the chariot to a crematorium, took all the weapons that he had hidden before the Agyatavas, because Agyatavas has just gotten over. And then Arjuna single-handedly defeated all these great warriors from the Kaurava side, single-handedly, and in fact told Uttar to tell within the kingdom that Uttar himself had fought with all these great Kuru warriors and defeated them. But Uttar mentioned the truth after going back, saying that I had become panicky and wanted to run away. But it was Arjuna who fought valiantly and defeated all the uh, Maharathis from Kaurava side and defended the kingdom. And thus, the dignity was saved of the Virat kingdom, and the cows were saved. And Virat, in return, also got his daughter Uttara married to Abhimanyu, the son of Arjuna. So Uttara became Arjuna's daughter-in-law. This we discussed. And we also discussed that all these great warriors, they were really endowed. They were not ordinary personalities like Duryodhan and Dushasan and Jayadratha. We can still discount them that because of their wicked nature and all, probably they couldn't match as much. But the personalities like Bhishma, Dronacharya, they were really endowed to defeat Pandavas and Arjuna anytime, specifically Bhishma. Even Karna, Prabhupada mentions in the earlier purport that Karna was an equal match. So, and he had the ability to defeat Arjuna, and it would have been a great discrepancy if Arjuna was to be defeated at the hands of Karna, but Krishna saved Arjuna more than one time. Yes. So in the next verse, so maybe some of these verses we will just go through the translation, Prabhuji's, Mataji's, in order to save time, because there is a group exercise where I would like to devote a bit more time for all the devotees to go through the detail. So, Rohini Mataji, you want to read through or you want to recite? Because we will skip the
Anything,
recitation.
Prabhuji?
Okay, you can read through then. It was he.
Okay, Hare Krishna. It was he only who withdrew the duration of life from everyone and sorry, Prabhuji. It was he only who withdrew the duration of life from everyone and who, in the battlefield, withdrew the speculative power and strength of enthusiasm from the great military phalanx made by the Kauravas, headed by Bhishma, Karna, Drona, Salya, etc. Their arrangement was expert and more than adequate. But he, Lord Shri Krishna, while going forward, did all this.
Yes, thank you. So here in the purport, we won't go through all the purport, but Srila Prabhupada specifically mentions that although Kauravas had all these Maharathis and great warriors in the form of Bhishma, Karna, Drona, Shalya, so on and so forth, Prabhupada mentioned that their commander-in-chief many times got changed, one after another. Bhishma, then Drona, then Karna, so on and so forth. But from Pandava's side, Arjuna was leading from beginning till the end, and he did not have to change because of the grace of Lord Krishna. So that was, and secondly, Srila Prabhupada also mentions that for a warfare to be successful, there are many factors, including powerful espionages, military tactics, and diplomatic maneuvers. But in case of Pandavas, all these were personally taken care by Lord Krishna. Can we think of any military tactics or diplomatic maneuvers examples, Rohini Mataji, where Krishna personally intervened to save the Pandavas? What did Lord Krishna do? There are many examples.
Bhishma Pitama Mataji. Sorry.
Yeah, 1 second. Let her try. Yeah,
Okay.
Rohini Mataji, you want to try?
Prabhuji. So there were tactics like Krishna knew what is probably going to happen the next day, and uh, he somehow ensured that he would let the Pandavas know the before night. So one of the examples on the battlefield was he tried the war used to end during the evenings. So at one point in time, he actually, with his Sudarshana Chakra, he stopped the sunlight and ensured that the evening came in earlier than expected.
Right. So that was one of the example where Arjun taken a vow to kill Jayadratha on that particular day before the sunset. And the Kauravas made foolproof arrangement to protect Jayadratha with several layers of security so that Arjun couldn't reach him. And Krishna made arrangement for everyone to think that it was already end of day, sunset. And Jayadratha and all the Kauravas, they were laughing and waiting for Arjun to fulfill his promise of entering the fire. But Krishna at that time uh, uncovered the sun, which he had covered earlier with his Sudarshan Chakra, and the sun started shining brightly again, and then guided Arjuna to fulfill his promise by killing Jayadratha to avenge the death of Abhimanyu unfairly. Then this was one. Then what Murli Prabhu mentioned, we have quite a few devotees who have raised their hands. So maybe we'll let devotees also. Uh, Reena Mataji, you wanted to answer this or you want to recite?
Yeah, I raised my hand to recite Prabhuji, but I can answer one Prabhuji. Like he went to, like he came to, like Duryodhana came and chastised Bhishma Deva that like you are like showing very mercy to Pandavas and you are not killing any one of them. So that time like Bhishma got very angry because he was Kshatriya. So like he said like yes, like next morning like I will be killing the Pandavas. I have those 5 golden arrows. He said. So like Krishna knew all these. So like he made Arjuna to go and approach. Like so Duryodhana he was not believing Bhishma Deva. So like he said Bhishma Deva like I will only keep those 5 arrows with me. So he took all the 5 arrows and he went to his Shibira. So like Krishna came to know about this. So he asked Arjuna to go and meet Duryodhana and whatever that like he had one what to tell vara, I don't know Prabhuji in English what to tell.
Okay.
Blessing like what like timely like Arjuna said like he will ask whenever the time comes. So
Right.
like Arjuna he asked Duryodhana that like you have to give me all those 5 arrows back. So then Duryodhana he had to give those 5 arrows back to Arjuna because he has to keep his words. So Arjuna took back the 5 arrows and he came back. So that's how like Krishna protected the death of Pandavas from the golden arrows of Bhishma Deva.
Vishnu. Thank you, Mother. And we also see that next day, even without those 5 arrows, Bhishma Dev fought so valiantly that Arjuna himself was at 6s and 7s. He was like a sitting duck, Prabhupada mentions, in front of Bhishma Dev. Had not Krishna intervened, Arjuna was sure to be killed by Bhishma Dev. So Krishna again personally intervened. So here Arjuna is recollecting all these favors done by Lord Krishna upon himself as well as all the other Pandavas, specifically recollecting the battle of Kurukshetra. And we also see that Duryodhan had unscrupulously brought few people who were close to Pandavas to join his side in a cunning manner, including Shalya. Shalya, who was Shalya? Prabhuji's Mataji's? Who was Shalya? How was he related to Pandavas?
Maternal
Maternal.
of Sahadev and
One by one. Yeah. So he was the brother of Madri, who was Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Hare Ram, Ram. He was the brother of Madri, the mother of Nakul and Sahadev. So he was the maternal uncle of the Pandavas. So he wanted to actually fight from the Pandava side, but Duryodhan tricked him and brought him to fight on Kaurava's side. And Krishna had specifically assigned one task to Shalya to taunt Karna whenever he would come in front to fight, uh, reminding him about his uh, parentage on Shudra side. So, of course, so all these arrangements, coming back to the point that Krishna personally made all these diplomatic and political arrangements just to bring victory to the Pandavas. And to be honest, Krishna doesn't have to go to all these level of details. Just by his will, scriptures mention that the things happen. He doesn't have to go to this length. But by going through all these means and maneuvers, what is Lord Krishna displaying? What is he trying to show by doing all these means to bring victory to the Pandavas, Prabhuji's Mataji's? What is Krishna's message? Yes, quickly, before we proceed.
He is always with his devotees, always
Yes.
willing to help his. He goes to England and help his
Yes.
devotees.
Yes, he can go to any length. Thank you. Thank you.
Hare,
Prabhuji.
Hare Krishna, Prabhuji. Krishna always wants to glorify his devotees.
Yes. Krishna wants to glorify his devotees and he wants to show to the world that to what length he himself can go, including breaking his own promise and upholding the words of his pure devotees, just to make it more graphic for the world, to what extent he can go in order to make his devotees victorious and basically fulfill his mission in a very, very graphic way. Otherwise, the Kauravas could have been killed even by the will of Lord Krishna. He didn't have to go to all this length, dissipating the illusion and the lamentation of Arjuna, explaining Bhagavad Gita, and doing all these political and diplomatic maneuvers. So we proceed. So we'll recite this verse. And now Arjuna is comparing the protection offered by Lord Krishna and the favors granted by Lord Krishna Pandavas, just like the protection and favor granted by Lord Narsimhadev to his great devotee Prahlad Maharaj. So we will recite this verse. Reena Mataji, you want to recite?
Yes, Prabhuji. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna. You want the meter, Mataji, or you are okay?
Yeah, this is fine.
Okay.
यद्दोषुमा प्रणिहितं गुरु भीष्मकर्णा नप्तुर्त्रिघर्त शल्य सैन्धव बाह्लिकादैः अस्त्राण्यमोघ महिमानि निरूपितानि नोपस्पृशुर्हरि दासम् इव सुराणि
Translation.
Hare Krishna. Translation by His Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada Shri Prabhupada ki jai. Great generals like Bhishma, Drona, Karna, Bhurishvara, Shusharma, Shalya, Jayadratha and Bahlika are all directed their invincible weapons against me. But by his Lord Krishna's grace, they could not even touch a hair on my head. Similarly, Prahlada Maharaja, the supreme devotee of Lord Narasimhadeva, was unaffected by the weapons the demons used against him. Hare Krishna.
Thank you, Mataji. So here in the purport, Srila Prabhupada gives great, briefly describes the story of Prahlad Maharaj, how his own father was very envious of him just because of this one quality of Prahlad Maharaj, of being a devotee of Lord Vishnu. And he came up with various means to persecute Prahlad Maharaj and kill him even personally. And then how Lord Narsimhadev appeared in order to bestow his favor and protection upon Prahlad Maharaj and personally killed this demon in front of the sun, in front of Prahlad Maharaj. And Arjuna is comparing that similarly, he was also protected from all these phalanxes of great warriors from Kuru's side, by Lord Krishna, similar to how Narsimhadev protected Prahlad Maharaj. And then Prabhupada gives details for various Maharathis on Kuru's side, so we won't go through the details. All of you can read through. One is Karna, then Bhurishrava, then Shalya, we just discussed a while ago, and so on and so forth. Nakta or Bhurishrava. So there were many father-son duels who were fighting together on the Kuru side, like Bhurishrava and including Maharaj Vruddhakshetra and his sons. They were also fighting together on the side of the Kurus. So all of this you can go through. About Jayadratha also, he mentions how Jayadratha was very much attracted by the beauty of Draupadi and tried to win her hand during the Swayamvar. And when Arjuna came out victorious, he became very envious. And unscrupulously, later on during the exile of Pandavas and all, Jayadratha tried to take advantage by approaching Draupadi to come to him. But Draupadi rejected time and again. And finally, when the matter came in front of the Pandavas, they punished him, especially Bhimasen, punished Jayadratha severely. And he was brought in front of Maharaj Yudhishthir, who out of his magnanimity granted pardon to Jayadratha. And then he again wanted to avenge from Pandavas Jayadratha. So all of you can go through, and then we come to the last verse in this particular section where Arjuna is recollecting various favors granted by Lord Krishna. And then what is his conclusion is very important, that we will have as the group exercise. Yeah, so this verse again, Prabhuji's Mataji, we won't recite as such. We want to save time for group activity. Any devotee would like to read through? Hare Krishna. Usha Kamat Mataji.
Hare Krishna, Prabhuji. Translation: It was by his mercy only that my enemies neglected to kill me when I descended from my chariot to get water for my thirsty horses. And it was due to my lack of esteem for my Lord that I dared engage him as my chariot driver, for he is worshipped and offered services by the best men to attain salvation.
Thank you, Mataji. So last time we had discussed Prabhuji's and Mataji's that it was an arrangement, it was an agreement that Krishna would join the side of the Pandavas as an advisor, but it was not a mandate for Lord Krishna to join as a charioteer. It was his own voluntary offering in love for his devotee Arjuna that he volunteered to become a chariot driver for Arjuna. And now Arjuna is lamenting that it was only because of my lack of proper respect and esteem for the Supreme Lord that I allowed him this position of being a chariot driver. Why this position as such is quite lower, because it is like a chauffeur. But being a charioteer on the battlefield was even more humble position. Why? Because it is explained in Mahabharata that on the battlefield of Kurukshetra, Arjuna did not have a facility to guide Krishna where the chariot should go and all, because he had to focus on the enemies in front, which were a plenty. And he was busy fighting. So wherever Arjuna wanted the chariot to be directed towards left or right, he had to literally kick the Lord on that particular side to guide him where the chariot should go. Of course, nobody of us can copy, because Arjuna was at that level of devotional service that Krishna personally took up that humble position. But Arjuna is lamenting now that he allowed Krishna to accept such a humble position because of not caring enough for the Lord's stature as the Supreme Personality of Godhead. So, yeah. And Srila Prabhupada mentions that how on the battlefield the scarcity of water is a problem where the soldiers, especially the wounded soldiers, as well as the animals like horses, elephants, and all, they are always in need of water. They are always thirsty. And but this problem was solved by the empowerment that was given by the Lord to Arjuna, who could shoot arrows and on the spot bring water for his thirsty horses. So Arjuna is recollecting all these favors by the Lord. Now we would come to the group activity. Yeah, and then Arjuna goes on to mention how Krishna used to address him in a very, very friendly, joking manner as a O best of the Kurus, O son of the Kuru dynasty, O son of Pritha, so on and so forth. And all such heartiness are now remembered by me, and thus I am overwhelmed. And these intimate dealings of the Pandavas with Lord Krishna we discussed even in the earlier chapters when Krishna was about to leave from Hastinapur, that Pandavas had various type of intimate exchanges, including daily having the Lord as one of their family members, conversing with the Lord, spending time with him, sitting with him, eating with him, sleeping with him. So all these interactions that Pandavas had day to day with Lord Krishna made them connect with him very intimately. And Arjuna is basically recollecting that sometimes in those friendly talks, even those friendly talks, there would be minimizing of the importance of Lord Krishna as the Supreme Lord, but Krishna never really took it seriously. He tolerated all these utterings of mine, excusing me exactly as a true friend excuses his true friend or a father excuses his son. And Srila Prabhupada mentions that Krishna fulfills all his relationships as a friend, as a son, as a beloved by relishing all the reproaches that come as part and parcel of these relationships from the dear friend or from the parents or from the beloveds, from the fiancés. So now let us come to the group exercise. 1 second. Let me see if we should. So all of you can go through these recollections of Arjun, of the various favors that are showered by Lord Krishna upon him and all the Pandavas, and what all conclusions can we draw. So probably we will have this as the breakout room group exercise, and devotees can systematically go through these verses. I have given a exact verse numbers from text 7 to text 17 and bring out the lessons that we can draw from these recollections of Arjun. And some of these are inference, like we can understand from what Srila Prabhupada explains, and some of these are literal, where Srila Prabhupada specifically gives beautiful statements in the purport of the lessons we can draw. Okay, so in order that there is less repetition and devotees can go more in detail, we will probably divide these verses among different groups. Okay, is the exercise clear? Prabhuji's Mataji, Hare Krishna. Hare Krishna, Prabhuji's Mataji, you can unmute so we can.
Can you please
Yes,
repeat,
yes.
Prabhuji? I got a bit distracted.
Okay. So we will have probably how many? 26. So we will have 3 breakout rooms. Okay. And there are total 11 verses. So we will have 4 plus 3 plus 4 plus 4 plus 3 as the division of these verses. And those specific groups can go through the verses and the purports and come up with the list of lessons, list of conclusions that we can draw from these recollections of Arjuna.
Okay.
Okay?
Thank you, Prabhuji.
Hare Krishna. So, what is the time now? 11 o'clock India time. So take about 4 verses, take about 8 to 10 minutes to go through the verses and 5 minutes for discussion. So 15 minutes devotees can come back to the main room. Hare Krishna. So 1 second. First group can go through text 7, 8, 9, 10, 7 to 10. Second group can go through verses 11 to 14. And third group can go through verses 15 to 17. Okay, Prabhuji's Mataji's, Hare Krishna. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna. Prabhuji, Mataji, the time was sufficient for you to go through all the purports? Okay.
Yes, Prabhuji.
Okay, fine.
Yes.
Let's wait for a few seconds for other devotees to join. Well, my control is close. Krishna 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 Krishna. All right. So who, maybe we'll start with group one. Who are devotees from group one who would like to present? Hare Krishna. Ananda Prada Mataji, Deepya Rukmini Mataji, Mannat Mataji, Prema Priya, Jai
Hare
Shri Mataji.
Hare Krishna Mataji.
Hare Krishna.
By the group, I mean, on their request, I am presenting the points, Prabhuji, here. Hare
Okay.
Krishna.
Okay.
Vasudevaya. Now, here, the first point we observed was that during Draupadi's ceremony, the Swayamvara ceremony, Arjuna had to pierce into the eye of the fish, by looking at the reflection below in the water. And this was not possible for anyone, actually. So, by God's grace, Lord's grace, he was able to do it. Of course, as one of the devotees said, even Karna was able to do it, but he was disqualified because he was a Shudra. She actually disagrees to marry him because he was a Shudra. That's the first thing where we see the Lord's grace for towards the Pandavas. And secondly, normally all are not able to reach the heavenly planets, but Arjuna could do so by the grace of the Lord. And in the third one, in the Khandava forest, the Maya demon was there, and when it was set on fire, he wanted to be saved. He requests Arjuna to save him. And by Arjuna's grace, he is of course saved, for which he is very indebted to Arjuna. And so when Lord Krishna wanted to kill the demon, Maya, on Arjuna's request, Lord actually spares him. This shows that the devotees say in the matters a lot for Lord Krishna. And so he concedes to his request. And of course, Jarasandha was very difficult to be killed because he was born in two parts. There was a curse. Actually, they had no their mothers had no children, and they were born in two parts, and they were joined to form Jarasandha. He had to be killed by Bhima. So when Bhima could not kill him initially, but then through Lord's hint, by splitting a blade of grass into two and throwing them in opposite directions, he got the hint that Jarasandha should be dissected in the center, and the two parts should be thrown in the opposite sides. And he did that on the hint, and he was able to kill Jarasandha. And lastly, during when Draupadi was actually derobed in the Kuru Sabha, it was a very sad sight when Dushasana did it. Her hair were actually let loose. So at the end of the Kurukshetra war, all the Kauravas' wives, they became the widows, and they're forced to loosen their hair in revenge to what was done to Draupadi. Prabhuji, I thank my group members for giving all the support and encouragement, Prabhuji, to present these points.
Thank you, Mataji. So first conclusion you had was a devotee is more merciful than the Lord.
Yes.
That the Maya Danav demon, he surrendered to Arjun, and Krishna wanted to have him killed, but because of Arjuna granting shelter, Krishna also was okay with it. So that was the first conclusion.
Yes.
That devotee's pardon is even more powerful than
Yeah.
that of the Lord. What is the conclusion from the all other points that you mentioned?
The first point, Prabhuji, is only through Lord's grace, Arjuna was able to aim at the eye of the fish.
Okay.
Yeah.
So Prabhupada mentions that connection with the Lord brings us all the favors to the
Success.
devotees.
All
And
success. Yeah.
all success to the devotee just by staying connected with the Lord in devotional service. This is second lesson. Any other lesson I have missed?
Heavenly planets, Prabhuji. Now, all cannot reach the heavenly planets without Lord's grace, but Arjuna was able to through Krishna's grace.
Yeah, but conclusion for this also is the same that we drew.
Same.
Second.
Yeah.
Okay. Any other
Hare
conclusion we have
In
missed?
one more is for the
Jarasandha.
last
One
incident.
more.
Yeah, please add, Mataji. Please add.
Yes,
Continue,
Mataji.
continue, Mata.
Reena Mataji.
Hare Krishna Prabhuji. But the last incident, what Mataji told, that is the Kuru Sabha, what happened. So Lord can tolerate the insults upon him, but he cannot tolerate the insults upon his devotee. Prabhuji.
Devotees.
Yes. So in this regard, there is a very graphic mention that Krishna can, like a person can tolerate heat upon his head, but not below his feet. It burns a lot. So because the devotees are situated at the lotus feet of Lord Krishna, whenever devotees are insulted or persecuted or disrespected, Krishna personally takes it very seriously. And we saw the different verses from scriptures.
Jarasandha example, Prabhuji. The secret of Jarasandha's birth was known to Krishna.
Yes. So yeah, that would fall under second conclusion.
Second.
That just because of connection with Krishna, all the favors will come to a devotee. Hare Krishna. Not that the devotee desires those favors, but as Krishna feels appropriate, he will grant those favors anyway. Thank you, Prabhuji's Mataji from group 1. Any other point we have missed? If not, we proceed to group 2. No. All right. Group 2 devotees. Anyone from group 2 would like?
Yeah, Hare Krishna, Prabhuji.
Hare Krishna. Yes, ma'am.
Yeah, Prabhuji, from group 2, I am presenting. So, if there is anything else from the group 2, you can feel free to add. Group 2 members. Okay, so Prabhuji, the first point is when Durvasa Muni was sent by Duryodhana to go to the forest where Pandavas were in exile, and then after they honored the prasadam, after Draupadi honored the prasadam, the food was not left, and Duryodhana purposely sent Durvasa Muni so that to create trouble for Pandavas. At that time, like when the devotees are put into difficulty, they have an opportunity to recollect the Lord with rapt attention.
Yes,
so this is one confusion. Yeah.
In fact, Prabhupada mentioned that at the time of difficulties, it is easier for devotees to attentively focus their attention on the Lord, to remember the Lord very intensely. So yes, thank you.
Yeah. And another point from that incident we can conclude is when the devotees recollect the Lord with rapt attention, then the Lord always protects his devotees. He is Bhakta Vatsala. So in the case of like Lord Narasimha Dev also we see. And he is Suhruda also, like he's a benefactor for all the living entities, as mentioned in Bhagavad Gita, chapter 5, 29th verse. Bhoktaram Yagyatapasam Sarvalokam Maheshwaram Suhrudam Sarvabhutanam Gyatva Shantim Richati. So this is one conclusion. And another conclusion that we can take from the same incident is that every householder must offer the food to the Lord. And the result will be that everyone, even like any number of guests, thousands, will be satisfied because of the Lord's being satisfied.
Thank you, ma'am. And Srila Prabhupada's purport is so graphic that we immediately feel inspired to cook nice bhoga and offer to the Lord, reading those lines. That we should offer sumptuous bhoga offering to the Lord, so that, and that Prabhupada's famous quote, Yashmin Tushte, what is that? Yasmin Tushte?
Jagat Tushte.
Jagat Tushtam, that if we satisfy the Lord, then everything around will automatically be satisfied. Thank you for sharing that. Any other point from group 2, Prabhuji's Mataji? Hare Krishna.
Yes, Prabhu, there are few more points. If there is time permits, then I can share.
Yes.
Okay. Yeah, and like by the grace of Supreme Personality of Godhead, all the demigods, including Lord Shiva, were pleased with Arjuna. So the idea is that one who is favored by Lord Shiva or any other demigod may not necessarily be favored by the Supreme Lord Krishna. So the example given is Ravana. So Ravana was a great devotee of Lord Shiva, but he could not be saved from the wrath of Supreme Personality of Godhead, Lord Ramachandra. So this
Yes.
is one of the conclusion.
But vice versa, Prabhupada also mentioned that those who are favored by devatas need not be favored by Krishna, but vice
Correct.
versa is true. That those who are favored by Krishna are definitely favored by the
Favored by.
devatas as well.
Yes. And another thing is that Arjuna was allowed to enter into the heavenly planets in the self same body simply by the grace of the Lord. Otherwise, it is not possible to do so.
Yes.
Yeah, and because Arjuna went there and he was able to get those like celestial weapons and all, procure those celestial weapons. And another point is the Lord is all powerful, and by His grace, His pure devotees can be as powerful as He may desire, and there is no limit to it. And when the Lord withdraws His power from anyone, He is powerless by the will of the Lord.
Yes. So, how a devotee takes into his stride whenever those empowerments are taken off. He is not disheartened or lamenting that those powers are gone. He is grateful to the Lord for whatever way he empowered him for a specific purpose. Thank
Yeah,
you, ma'am.
as we see in case of Arjuna also, like the powers were withdrawn, but he used that opportunity to actually go back to Godhead.
Yes, mother. Thank you
And
very much.
yeah, and one last point, Prabhu, on the Kaurava side, there are many stalwart commanders like Bhishma, Drona, Kripa, and Karna, and their military strength was insurmountable. But due to Lord Krishna's grace alone, so Arjuna was able to vanquish them, one after another without difficulty.
Yes. Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you, thank you.
Hare Krishna. Many
Hare
nice points from group 2 devotees. From group 3, Hare Krishna, Prabhuji's Mataji would like to present.
Okay, Hare Krishna, Prabhuji.
Hare
I'll make the detailed introduction and details, Prabhuji, and Usha
Mhm.
Kamat Mataji will present you the conclusions, Prabhuji.
Okay.
Okay,
Okay.
right. So Prabhuji, now this part of the one is going into the Mahabharata war. What is the most the significance of the how the Lord helped him in the Mahabharata? Yeah, one of the first
Mhm.
point we should show is he mentions here is about they withdrew the life of various generals. Now, for this, we'd like to say that we make a connection between how Arjuna became had a nervous breakdown before the war and he was not able to fight. At that point of time, Krishna gave him the full Bhagavad Gita, which is explains the whole theory of life in a very wonderful short way. But also he showed him what is happening to all the generals. They were all anyway dying. And then he told them that whether if you fight with if you fight the war, you win over the battle and be part of my job, or else this will anyway continue. That's the first part. So that's why he knew already that the life was all being cut. Yeah, that's the first thing we can see there. The in this verse, uh, the mention of great warriors is mentioned about in verse 16, Prabhuji. Drona, Bhishma, Bhuriswa, Shushama, Salya, Jayadratha, Bhahika. So I think, but Srila Prabhupada has mentioned in many places the importance, the greatness of great generals like Bhishma. But here he mentioned about Drona, Bhurishrava, Salya, and Jayadratha. So we probably have a quick look at the power of these generals, Prabhuji. Yeah, not others. Of course, they were very great warriors, but we talk. See, Karna was a great archer, okay, but he was, even though he was born to a lowly family, by his hard work and this, he became finally a disciple of Dronacharya and then also of, uh, was it Parshurama? Parshurama? I think he was of
Parshuram, he learned from
yeah,
Parshuram.
Brahmins. Yeah.
Yeah.
So he was a very devoted and very accomplished archer. Okay, so and he had lot of victories under his belt. So he was a powerful one and he was a Maharathi. Okay, now coming to Bhurisrava, Bhurisrava was also Bhurisrava was a brother of Salya, uh, who Salya was also Salya himself was a good friend of Pandu. And then it was said in Mahabharata some places that it was they had very good friendship. Salya and Pandu, and they'd always discussed about all aspects of the war. But both Bhurishrava and Salya were also great commanders. They are Maharathis in their own right. Maharathi is a person who, I think there is a calculation on how much power they have. Yeah, Susurma was one of the kings who kind of deviated at the time towards the end of the incognito period. Yeah, he was the one who deviated the Virata from to concentrated on the south, and he defeated and arrested Virata in the battle. Yeah, so he was also a powerful king. Now Jayadratha was the brother-in-law of Duryodhana, a good warrior, and then his father had a boon that whoever kills Jayadratha, through him his head falls on the ground, they will be killed by themselves. Now, apart from this, if you look at the army strengths of Kauravas and Pandavas, armies has Kauravas had 11 Akshunis and Pandavas only has 7. So basically, they were only a third of their strength was there. But even all these things, yeah, then going ahead, when during the war, when the horses needed water, yeah, and it was free for all, the horses would get down. Anyone could have killed Arjuna, but then it was Lord who protected him all the time to ensure that water was provided to the horses. Yeah, and then during the period when they were having the drinking the water, it was protected. Right, he was protected. Not only he, but many of his generals were protected. Yeah, including his brothers. So that way, we see that Lord has protected us, Arjuna, throughout the battle. Yes, and Arjuna has taken cognizance of it. Yeah, I think Usha Kamat Mataji, I think you had very good 3 points. Please explain that.
Yes, I'll just conclude, Hare Krishna. So, in conclusion, we can say that the Lord gives power and strength, but he also withdraws it when the Lord feels it is appropriate. So, though the Kauravas and all their supporters were given strength and they had expert warriors on their side, Arjuna was protected from all their strength. He was made stronger, and the Kauravas' power seemed to be reduced. And that's how Arjuna got saved. Then the Kauravas had invincible weapons which could have been used to decimate the Pandavas and destroy Arjuna. But due to the Lord's grace, Arjuna was protected even there. And the third was an opportunity arose for the Kauravas to kill Arjuna when he got down to, quench his horse's thirsts. But even at that time, the Lord stepped in and, saved him. So mercy from the Lord is definitely there to protect all his pure devotees. And only his mercy can protect us. Hare Krishna. Thank you.
Thank you all, Prabhuji's Mataji. Thank you, Usha Mataji, for bringing such wonderful conclusion and the points. 1 second. So, yeah, coming back to the slide. So I had jotted down few points, and most of you have covered all of them. So, through all the recollections of the favors from Lord Krishna that Arjuna recollects, he is not taking credit for any of those wonderful feats that he or Pandavas have achieved, but giving all the credit to Krishna where it is due. And he is mentioning only Krishna's empowerment as the main reason for he achieving all these feats. Then devotees, they always do endeavor what is within their control without worrying about what is not in their control. And there are so many examples, specifically the graphic example is Draupadi, that what was in her control, like firstly, materially speaking, she tried to use her own strength to hold on to her sari. But then when it became beyond her control, she remembered Krishna intensely and left everything else to Lord Krishna, whatever he desires. But Krishna didn't disappoint. And similarly, we have so many personalities, including Gajendra, for example, who remembered the Lord sincerely and tried everything what was within their control. A devotee doesn't think that if Just in case I had this ABC within my power, I could have served Krishna better. But what are we doing with the facilities which are within our control? That is very, very important, and that matters to Krishna the most. Then a devotee understands, as many of you mentioned, whatever empowerment has been granted by the Lord, it is granted for a specific purpose. Prabhupada time and again uses the phrase, one should not be, one should not be proud of the borrowed plumes. That's what Srila Prabhupada uses the phrase. That means whatever empowerment has been granted by the Lord, whatever wonderful thing we are able to do, either with our intelligence, strength, wealth, beauty, or whatever, is only because Krishna has granted us that. Otherwise, we are good for nothing without his empowerment. And similarly, a devotee does not lament when that empowerment is withdrawn from the Lord's side. And another point that we also discussed earlier, that our going back home, back to Godhead is not dependent on our skills, which are temporary empowerment that are granted to us, but it is solely dependent on only one and one thing, which is our devotion to Lord Krishna. And if we make use of our free will to remember, serve, and please the Lord, that is something Krishna takes very good note of, rather than any other temporary empowerment. So 1 second, let's proceed. All right. So coming back to the verse, so we will skip verses till 20. You can go through 18, 19, etc. And now we'll come to text 21, where Arjuna is graphically recollecting that how apparently all those external facilities still being there, still he is not the same Arjuna without Krishna's empowerment. So we will recite this verse, Prabhuji's Mataji's. Who had raised hand? Next one to recite quickly. Lalita Vinodini Mataji. Hare Krishna. Yes, Mataji. Text 21.
Yeah. Text 15.21, right?
Yes, Mataji.
Yes. Okay, Hare Krishna. Tadvaidanusta ishava
Tadvaidanusta Ishava
Sarato hayaste
Sarato Hayaste
So aham rathi
So
Ahamrati
Nripatayo yat anaman
Nripatayo Yata Anamanti
Anavanti
Sarvam kshanena
Sarvam Kshanena
Tadabhut asat isar riktam
Tad Abhut Asat Isharitam
Basman hutam kuhaka
Bhasmantam Kuhaka
Radham ivoktam ushyam
Radham Ivoktam Ushyam.
Yes, thank you, Mataji. So here Arjuna is recollecting Satvai Dhanush the Ishava, that I have the same Gandiva bow that was empowered by Lord Krishna earlier. The Ishava, same set of Ishava means same set of arrows. Saratho, same chariot. Hayaste, and same set of horses with which I had derived great results earlier. Soham rati nrupatayo yata anamanti. And with this, I was able to defeat so many powerful kings. But what has happened now? Sarvam kshanena tat abhum asat ishariktam. Sarvam kshanena tat. Kshanena means momentarily, just in a moment, all this has become riktam, all this has become null and void, because Krishna has withdrawn that empowerment. Bhasman hutam kuhakaradham ivoktam usham. And Just at a moment notice, all this has become null and void. Whatever objects he mentioned that were earlier empowered, it is exactly, and he compares that withdrawal of the empowerment by the Lord with three analogies. What are the three analogies? It is exactly like offering clarified butter on the ashes. So typically, the fire sacrifice yajna is successful when the ahuti, when the offering is made on the fire. But if the clarified butter is put on the ashes, only the smoke will come out of it. The offering won't be successful. Or accumulating money with a magic wand. That means it is a fake money. It will only be there for a moment and then it will disappear. Or it is like sowing the seeds on a barren land. That means the seeds won't fructify into plants and the outcome won't come. So all these great assets that were earlier of so much value because of Krishna's empowerment, all these having those are of no use now that Krishna has withdrawn his empowerment. So with various analogies, Arjuna is recollecting. And yes, this is the statement of Srila Prabhupada that we were just mentioning about. Srila Prabhupada mentions one should not be puffed up by borrowed plumes. All energies and powers are derived from the Supreme Source, Lord Krishna, and they act as long as he desires and cease to function as soon as he withdraws. In a moment's time, such energies can be generated or withdrawn by the supreme will of the Lord. And there is a very famous story. I don't know whether all of you have heard. Srila Prabhupada oftentimes quotes this story in his talks about Lord Krishna's empowerment, about Punar Mushtika Bhava, that Prabhupada quotes that there was once a very powerful yogi doing austerities and penance within a forest, and a mouse comes to take shelter of the yogi and basically complains that, oh, my dear yogi Baba, please protect me because I have been constantly harassed by a cat. And the yogi empowers the mouse to become a cat, and the mouse immediately changes his body into a cat and is very happy that now I don't have to worry about the cat anymore. I also have an equally powerful body. And then further, the cat comes to the yogi and then complains that she is chased and very scared of a tiger, and the tiger can kill her any moment because tiger is a way too powerful cat compared to an ordinary house cat. And please make me into a tiger. And the yogi says, all right, then become a tiger. And the cat immediately changes her body into a tiger and is very happy that he has got a powerful body of a tiger. But then as soon as the cat becomes the tiger, the cat starts looking with a wrong intent towards the yogi, with the intent of eating the yogi himself, who has just made him into a tiger. And then, when the tiger was just about to attack and eat the yogi again mentions that Punar Mushtika Bhava. That means again become a mouse. And Srila Prabhupada used to quote this story to explain that if we become proud because of the empowerment that are given by the Lord for fulfilling any specific purpose of his, then for the Lord for to make us again into a mouse is no difficult thing. So we should always be very careful about not being proud with whatever Krishna has granted and using it only in his service without any pride. So that is very, very important. As Arjuna is feeling here that all these empowerments have become null and void with Krishna withdrawing them, all these assets. Yes, and now Arjuna is coming to answer Yudhishthira's original question. How are the Yaduvamshis, Yadavas, and Lord Krishna doing? And then Arjuna mentions, O king, since you have asked me about our friends and relatives in the city of Dwaraka, I will inform you that all of them were cursed by the Brahmanas And as a result, they all became intoxicated with wine made of putrefied rice and fought amongst themselves with sticks, not even recognizing one another. Now, all but 4 or 5 of them are dead and gone. So, Arjuna is now frankly explaining the fate of the Yadus. They have met their end, and whole Yadu dynasty is destroyed, except for 4 or 5 surviving members, probably Uddhava and few more. प्रेणैतात् भगवता ईश्वरस्य विचेष्टिता मिथो निघ्नन्ति भूतानि भव्यन्ति च यन्मितः. So here I have written something. Let me check 1 second. Yes. So Arjuna is recognizing Krishna's hand in everything. Actually, this is all due to the supreme will of the Lord, the personality of Godhead. Sometimes people kill one another, and at other times they protect one another. So Arjuna is just explaining this apparent discrepancy in the behavior of the Yadus. That how is it possible that they could kill one another? It is just because of Krishna's will. Yes, the purport is very important. So maybe we request a devotee to go through the, because it is also very relevant to the contemporary happenings in the modern world, how Krishna arranges things. Can I request any devotees who would like to read through Prabhuji's Mataji's Hare Krishna? Gita, okay, Gita Mataji, just hold on. Maybe we'll have Dhanya Dhameshwari Mataji read through first and you read the next one. Dhanya Dhameshwari Mataji, Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna Prabhuji.
Hare Krishna.
But they do not know that behind the law of nature is the supreme direction of the supreme personality of Godhead. In the Bhagavad Gita, it is confirmed that the law of nature is executed under the direction of the Lord. Whenever, where therefore there is a peace in the world, it must be known that it is due to the good will of the Lord. And whenever there is a upheaval in the world, it is also due to the supreme will of the Lord. Not a blade of grass moves without the will of Lord. And whenever, therefore, there is disobedience of the established rules enacted by the Lord, there is a war between men and nations. The surest way to the path of peace, therefore, is dovetailing everything to the established rule of the Lord. The established rule is that whatever we do, whatever we eat, whatever we sacrifice, and whatever we give in charity must be done to the full satisfaction of the Lord. No one should do anything, eat anything, sacrifice anything, or give anything in the charity against the will of the Lord.
Yeah, so we'll take a pause here. Which all verses from Bhagavad Gita is Prabhupada referring to? Prabhuji's Mataji? Which is this verse?
9.2, Prabhu, 9.2.
Yat karoshi yadashna
Yajosi dadasi
yat
yat tapasyasi
tapasyasi kaunteya tat kurushva madarpanam.
madarpanam. And here, earlier part of the purport, this is easier. In the Bhagavad Gita, it is confirmed that law of nature is executed under the direction of the Lord. Which verse is referring to? Under the direction of the Lord. Maya adhyakshena
Prakriti suyati sa characharam hetuna rena kaunteya jagat viparivartate.
Yes. So Prabhupada is very nicely explaining here, even the peace in the world is one of the grace of the Lord. Whenever He grants and whenever He desires, only then there will be peace. And similarly, when there is a discrepancy in the behavior of the human population going against the established rules of the Lord, then there will be fights and wars between men and nation. So we can see lot of this happening in the current world because of discrepancies in the execution of the duties. And Srila Prabhupada concludes the purport by saying that's why there should be good discretion on the part of human beings in terms of what should be done, what should not be done, if we want to have real peace and happiness in our life. Please continue, Mataji. Discretion.
Discretion is the better part of valor, and one must learn how to discriminate between actions which may be pleasing to the Lord and those which may not be pleasing to the Lord. An action is thus judged by the Lord's pleasure or displeasure. So there is no room for the personal whims. We must always be guided by the pleasure of the Lord. Such action is called as yoga karmishu kaushalam, or actions performed which are linked with the Supreme Lord. That is the art of doing a thing perfectly. Thank you.
Thank you, Mataji. So here again, Srila Prabhupada is referring to this famous verse from 2nd chapter, where he mentions, he concludes with verse with yoga karmasu kaushalam. That means proper way of doing one's work is only for the satisfaction of Krishna in the form of yoga, which is the art of all work. And such work can get rid of good and bad karma both. So here Prabhupada is mentioning for a devotee, simple discretion whether we should do an activity or not do an activity should be whether that activity would please the Supreme Lord or whether that activity will displease the Lord. If it is pleasing to the Lord, we must do it, even if it is displeasing to ourselves. And if it is displeasing to the Lord, then we must avoid it, even if that activity is giving pleasure to us. And the same conclusion we also see in Bhagavad Gita, like the verses we saw, Yad Karoshi Yadashnashi Juhosi Dadasiyat. Similarly, we also saw the same conclusion in the earlier part of Canto 1, Chapter 2, where Sutta Goswami mentioned that the ultimate goal of each and every activity we do in the Varnashram system is ultimately to please Lord Hari, to satisfy Lord Hari. And if we do that, if we reach that conclusion, then our activity is successful. Otherwise, it is all Shama Evahi Kevalam. So we proceed. Actually, there is one more group activity. Let us see if we can get time to cover it. So I'll quickly go through few verses, Prabhuji's, Mataji's, to save time, and we'll try and have that discussion today. So we bring today's discussion to a logical conclusion. O king, as in the ocean, the bigger and stronger aquatics swallow up the smaller and weaker ones, so also the Supreme Personality of Godhead, to lighten the burden of the earth, has engaged the stronger Yadu to kill the weaker and the bigger Yadu to kill the smaller. So Arjuna is explaining how Krishna basically used the disparity in terms of his empowerment to a specific member of the Yadu family, for the stronger one to kill the weaker one, and for that stronger one to be killed by someone who is even more stronger. So that way, by having the fight within the Yadus, he had them all annihilated. And scriptures, specifically Acharyas in Srila Prabhupada, explain the reason why Krishna had that. All of you recollect, Prabhuji's Mataji, we had mentioned earlier discussions that not all of Krishna's associates in Dwarka are the eternal associates in the Vaikuntha or the Goloka Vrindavan. Many of them are coming from the heavenly planets where they are engaged in their specific duties. So specifically for these living entities who still have some more purification to happen before they return back home, back to Godhead, Krishna has arranged for their end in such a way that wherever those entities came from the heavenly planets, etc., they go back to those places and continue with their duties, finish the remaining quota of purification, and then come finally back home, back to Godhead. So that is the reason why Krishna is arranging the annihilation. And we had also discussed one more reason. Had Yadus continued after Krishna's departure, Krishna was also worried about the disturbance they would cause on the earth because of their great strength. And some of them were already distracted at that particular point in time. So that's what Bhagavatam mentions, the reason for Krishna arranging this Moshana Leela. And Srila Prabhupada explains how these disparities exist in the material world just because of one singular reason, which is every conditioned living entity's mentality to lord it over the material nature. And if this mentality is replaced by the mentality to serve the Supreme Lord, then this disparity doesn't exist at all. Just like in the Vaikuntha world or Goloka Vrindavan, there is no disparity because each and every living entity is engaged in serving the Lord. And there we have very famous examples given in Bhagavatam that whenever a bumblebee starts singing for Krishna, even the great singers like Cuckoo Bird and all, they immediately stand quiet, just so that Krishna is able to relish the singing of that bumblebee and they themselves are able to relish. They don't think that, oh, I sing better than the bumblebee, so maybe let me sing louder voice so that my voice overshadows the bumblebee. No, their feeling is this bumblebee is such a great devotee of the Lord and she wants to please Lord Krishna by her singing. So let me cooperate and hear what she has to say. So that is the difference between the material world and spiritual world. So there is no disparity in spiritual world, but it exists in the material world. Yeah, now we come to the concluding part of today's discussion, where Arjuna, after having recollected all these favors granted by Lord Krishna, is now coming to remember the instructions. He is taking shelter of the instructions imparted by Lord Krishna to him. And what were the prominent instructions, Prabhuji's Mataji's, that were imparted by Krishna to Arjuna? What are those instructions? Anyone? Hare Krishna. The answer is in front of us on this. Sorry, Mataji.
Bhagavad Gita.
The conclusion of Bhagavad Gita, which is
Bhagavad
Sarva
Gita.
Dharman Parityajya Mamekam Sharanam Vraja.
Yes.
Aham Tvam Sarva Papebhyo Moksheshyam Ma
Moksheshyam.
Shucha.
Thank you, Mataji. So as such, overall instructions of Bhagavad Gita, Arjuna is taking shelter of to relieve his heart of all the burning pain that he was feeling and to pacify himself and to decide on the next course of action. So this is very important. So we will probably Hare Krishna.
Sarvadharman parityajya mamekam saranam vraja.
Oh, thank you. Thank you,
Aham
Mataji.
tvam sarva papebhyo mokshayishyam master.
Hare
That
Thank
is
you.
the conclusion of Bhagavad
Hare
Gita.
Thank
Hare
you.
Krishna.
So Arjuna is recollecting all those instructions from Bhagavad Gita right from the beginning, right from the difference. You are not the body, you are the spirit soul. Oh Arjuna, through Bhagavad Gita, he is taking shelter of those instructions. And Prabhupada mentions very clearly how taking shelter of those instructions is as good as having the physical presence of the Lord in front of us. So now we would quickly read through those highlighted portions of Srila Prabhupada's purports. Can we have few devotees keep their hands raised and we will request them to read through. Hare Krishna. Lalita Vinodini Mataji, Hare Krishna. Keep your hands raised, Prabhuji's Mataji. Yeah. The problem?
Hare Krishna. Should I read Prabhuji the problem?
Yes, the problem.
Yeah. Srila Prabhupada ki jai. The problem which arose in the heart of Arjuna on the battlefield of Kurukshetra was solved by the teachings of Bhagavad Gita. Again, after the departure of the Lord from the vision of earthly people, when Arjuna was face to face with being vanquished in his acquired power and prominence, he wanted again to remember the great teachings of the Bhagavad Gita, just to teach all concerned that the Bhagavad Gita can be consulted in all critical times, not only for solace from all kinds of mental agonies, but also for the way out of great entanglements which may embarrass one in some critical hour. Shall I continue, Prabhuji?
Yes, yes.
The merciful Lord left behind him the great teachings of the Bhagavad Gita so that one can take the instructions of the Lord even when he is not visible to the material eyesight. Thus, the Bhagavad Gita or any authentic scriptural sound representation of the Lord is also the incarnation of the Lord. There is no difference between the sound representation of the Lord and the Lord himself. One can derive the same benefit from the Bhagavad Gita as Arjuna did in the personal presence of the Lord.
Thank you. Thank you, Mataji. So here we see that, what is the verse number? 27. Here we see that Arjuna is now recollecting that I was earlier as well in a perplexed situation when the battlefield of Kurukshetra was about to begin. And in that situation of perplexity, it was Krishna who had given me the shelter and who had dispelled all my illusion, all my doubts. So now, although Krishna is not physically present, let me recollect those instructions so that again I am in a situation of perplexities. I don't know how to proceed with life now that Krishna has disappeared. And by taking shelter of those instructions of Krishna, Arjuna could feel the personal presence of the Lord. So this slide, Prabhuji's Mataji's I is going through, where it is explained basically Yoga Karmashu Kaushalam, how a devotee is always bothered about what pleases Krishna. And the famous example is Krishna having headache and gopis giving their dust of their lotus feet, or Bhishma dedicating his entire life to act or fight on behalf of Kurus just to fulfill Krishna's wish that how much ever powerful a person may be, as great as Bhishma, is still going to get vanquished if one fights on the side of adharma. So a devotee always is wanting to please Lord Krishna. So coming back to this particular point of taking shelter of Krishna while we are in a difficult situation, even when Krishna is not physically present before us. We can learn from Arjuna's example how those instructions from Lord are not different from Lord's personal presence. That's what Srimad Bhagavatam is explaining to all of us. And we also see that Arjuna, Yudhishthir Maharaj, they are not really relinquishing their material responsibilities. Of course, the title of the chapter is The Pandavas Retire in a Timely Manner. But they do derive their conclusions on what to do next in terms of those instructions of the Lord by passing on the baton to Maharaj Parikshit to take care of the kingdom, and then dedicating their whole self for God realization to perfect their lives. So all these purports are a bit long, we won't go through. Yes, so being absorbed in Krishna consciousness while performing our day-to-day duties, we see that so many examples. We saw the example of Arjuna, Yudhishthir Maharaj, who were Kshatriyas performing their day-to-day duties, including those which they were not very fond of. Like there were 10 reasons Yudhishthir Maharaj and Arjuna why they were reluctant to fight the battle of Kurukshetra, but they did it only to please Lord Krishna. Similarly, during in the 10th canto of Srimad Bhagavatam, we see the wonderful example of the gopis. It is not that gopis used to sit and meditate on the Lord. Bhagavatam explains that they were constantly engaged in their day-to-day activities, including milking the cows, including winnowing the grain, churning butter, gathering cow dung for fuel, and riding on swings, taking care of the crying babies. Many of the gopis, they had their household to take care of, sprinkling the ground with water, cleansing their houses, etc. But their attention and focus was solely focused on Lord Krishna, and that's why they are glorified. Dhanya Vrajastriya Urukrama Chitta Yanaha. Because their consciousness was completely fixed on Urukrama, Lord Krishna, they are glorified as Dhanya. Their lives are glorified as perfect ones. So it is important that whatever phase of life we may be, a student, a householder, a retired person, or a father, grandfather, grandmother, teacher, we do our day-to-day duties, but keep our attention completely focused on Lord Krishna and his instructions. And then we will be able to get our guidance the way Arjuna got, and then we will be able to perfect our life. Srila Prabhupada mentioned that it is as good as having Krishna physically before us to guide us if we focus on its instructions from Bhagavad Gita. And then in the later part of the verse 28, Srila Prabhupada explains how Krishna's disappearance, the example of the famous example of the sun, it is his physical disappearance, and even that physical disappearance can be dispelled if we take shelter of Bhagavad Gita. And it is just like while he is disappearing here, he is appearing at some other place. So it doesn't mean that the Lord is gone. He is still present. It is just that he appeared in this world to fulfill a specific mission, and for that particular period he was visible to our eyes. Now that his mission has gotten over, he has withdrawn that vision of ours to be able to see him in person physically. And Prabhupada concludes by saying, the feeling of separation from the Lord is undoubtedly painful to the devotee, but because it is in connection with the Lord, it has a specific transcendental effect which pacifies the heart. Feelings of separation are also sources of transcendental bliss, and they are never comparable to the contaminated material feelings of separation. So Prabhupada is saying that we lament even when somebody near and dear pass away, but that lamentation and the lamentation felt by the Pandavas in separation from Lord Krishna are two different things. Because the Pandavas could feel that connection to the Lord by focusing their attention upon Him and by remembering the instructions of Bhagavad Gita. So the pain was there, but the clarity was there. Why this has happened? Why did Krishna come? Why did Krishna empower me? Why that empowerment has been taken away? And what I should do now? That clarity was there with the Pandavas. But in material lamentation, person is completely bewildered. There is no clarity of thought. What should be done next? So Prabhupada, Bhagavatam proceeds. Arjuna's constant remembrance of the lotus feet of Lord Krishna rapidly increased his devotion, and as a result, all the trash in his thoughts subsided. Now, one question might arise: how can we think of any contamination within Arjuna's heart? Because he's not an ordinary personality, he's an eternal associate, a Nitya Parikar of Lord Krishna. Not only that, he is also an incarnation in Naranarayan Rishi incarnation. Krishna is the Narayan part and Nara is Arjuna. So, although he is a Jiva Tattva, but he is definitely an empowered personality. So, there cannot be any contamination within his heart. That contamination that Bhagavatam is mentioning here in terms of trash in his thoughts, it is mainly the unsteadiness of his mind because of Krishna's departure. So that will also be taken care of now that Arjuna is recollecting Krishna's instructions. So let me just go back to the slide and see what was the activity. Probably we'll do that activity in the next session. We'll start with that. Yes, so the exercise that we did for Arjuna's recollection of the favors, which was text 7 to 17. Similarly, Arjuna's recollection of Lord Krishna's instructions, specifically from Bhagavad Gita, and Arjuna, as a result of recollecting those instructions, becoming completely pacified within his heart and attaining transcendence. What does it mean by attaining transcendence? Yudhishthir Maharaj and Arjuna, as it will be clear from text 32 onwards, they decide to retire now that Krishna has left, and they decide their next course of actions. So that attaining of the transcendence by Arjuna, what lessons we can draw from those verses? And can we think of any examples from the scriptures of any devotee who got himself or herself freed from intense grief and anxiety by taking shelter of the transcendental knowledge? So probably this is less time consuming second point. Can all of you, Prabhujis, Matajis, take a minute to think and think of any example? Those devotees who want to answer can raise their hands, and remaining devotees can lower the hands. So can you think of any example of a devotee who was in intense grief and lamentation, and he took shelter of the transcendental knowledge to get out of the lamentation? So raise your hands, Prabhuji's Mataji. Think for a minute, and then we conclude for today. Hare Krishna. And we will have the first point discussed as a group activity next time.
Guru Maharaj
Well, yes, yes. So I was also thinking while preparing for this that externally speaking, there are so many inconveniences, we can say discomforts to the body, that Maharaj himself is still in a blissful state, but we ourselves, seeing Maharaj's bodily complications, we feel anxiety that how he could possibly, conduct his day-to-day duties and, continue to give inspiration and shelter to so many devotees. But at his own level, Maharaj, His Holiness Jayapataka Swami Maharaj, is completely blissful. So of course, we can never say that Maharaj is in intense grief, because he's at that level of Satchidananda where devotees are in anxiety, but Maharaj is always blissful and thinking about service to Krishna than his own bodily comfort. Can we think of any devotees from Srila Prabhupada's books, Prabhuji's Mataji, who was in intense grief, and when that transcendental knowledge was given to him by XYZ devotee or in XYZ manner, he could get out of it, that lamentation? Can we request everyone to think? Then we will conclude.
Hare
Maybe
Krishna Prabhuji.
Hare Krishna, Reena Mataji.
Prabhuji, hippies
Huh.
became happy, Prabhuji, by taking shelter of Lord.
Yeah. Hippies became happies, but to be honest, although they were frustrated in the true sense, externally speaking, they still had a happy-go-lucky life. They used to enjoy unrestrictedly, and they have no rules and regulations in their life as such. Can we think of a devotee who was in intense grief stricken?
Hare Krishna, Prabhu.
Hare Krishna.
Yeah.
Yes, Shama Gopi,
King
come.
King Chitraketu.
Chitraketu, yes.
When his only son was killed by poison, and Narad Rishi came and explained him about the transcendental knowledge, and then even brought back the son who was dead to life, and then son asked which father you're talking about, is it like which life, from which life? So yeah, after that King Chitraketu was pacified after hearing the instructions.
Yes, very nice and graphic example. What was the after effect of the son's teachings to Maharaj Chitraketu? What did he do next? He became a liberated person. He became a Vidyadhara. He was elevated in his life, completely became aloof from that lamentation that he was earlier experiencing. Very nice example. Any other example? Rohini Mataji, Hare Krishna. You can unmute, Rohini Mataji.
Hare Krishna, Prabhuji.
Yes,
Uh,
Mataji.
yeah, 1 second. Parikshit Maharaj, during when he was grief stricken because he had only 7 days to live, and he didn't know what exactly to do in the last 7 days of his life, and that's when he heard to Srimad Bhagavatam, and then because of this transcendental knowledge, he was able to completely put his mind into Krishna, and when he actually left the world, then he went to Krishna as well.
Thank you, Mataji. Just one slight correction, that everything else is correct, that Parikshit Maharaj took shelter of the transcendental knowledge from Shukadev Goswami, attained Lord Krishna, but he was not grief-stricken. When he came to know that he had only 7 days, his intelligence was very clear, that immediately he left home and then sought out association of great devotees to hear about Krishna, and finally Shukadev Goswami arrived. Thank you, Rohini Mataji. Maybe we'll request one more devotee and then we conclude for today. Adidev Gopesh Prabhu, Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna, Prabhu. So,
Nandus.
it's like Prachin Varihi, like he was in the material life, and then Narad Muni instructs him.
King Prachinha Barhi. Yes, but even externally, truly speaking, yes, he was definitely caught up in the fruitive activities where one uh, fruitive sacrifice he would conduct, and at the end of it start with the next one. But externally speaking, he was not grief stricken. It was Narad Muni who took compassion upon him in order to liberate himself because of his connection to the Prachetas. But Prachina Bari, externally speaking, he was not grief-stricken.
Prabhuji, and Dhruv Maharaj, like he wanted to get a
Dhruva
bigger
Maharaj,
kingdom.
yes. So Dhruva Maharaj was definitely grief-stricken, mainly insulted, and had a vengeful attitude that, to had a material ambition to counteract that insult that he was meted out. Okay, so let
Hare
me
Krishna.
thank you, Prabhuji. So let me stop the recording. We have few announcements.